Okay, I'm actually going to talk about what happened before, during, and the prison situation. I've got several pieces of paperwork out with me that are relevant to what happened, including the paperwork from 2020, even though I was imprisoned in 2021, and I will go and explain all of this in a bit. So I'll give you the background using the paperwork here, and it's relevant to keep a memory of this. I will probably pull the paperwork up again and cite it again to what happened in 2021. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go over. I'm just going to quickly go over it. I'm going to try and just to say it clearly rather than get emotional about things, because that'll just prolong it. I'm tired. Okay, 2020. Some incidents in terms of housing, the state of housing, and I was, trying to get fire safety, structural safety inspections done, and I was trying to report the housing team for fraud. I wouldn't have even bothered really doing that. Apart from the fire safety and structural safety stuff, I probably wouldn't have bothered with the fraud if it hadn't been that for the whole year prior, I'd been so badly abused on that estate, right under the nose of the housing office. And I had tried to get moved from that estate in 2019, and was trying to get help from other places as well. Yet Marac dropped support. It kind of all went a bit... Anywho, so 2019 was terrible. I'm not going to go into details. I don't want to talk about it. So 2020, I kind of was in a different sort of mindset and was trying to get basically I was trying to get some repairs done. Some things happened. I noticed serious issues with health and safety and fire safety and whatnot. So I don't need to explain all of that stuff right now. I've put plenty of that online, so I don't need to go over it. So anywho, I tried to report them to the Financial Conduct Authority for fraud. Tried to report Loughborough Estate Management Board in 2020 for fraud. My initial email that I sent with the evidence that they had actually broken their own rules, the rules of their own society. Now, under the Financial Conduct Authority, obviously they can't investigate crime, but they do pass it on to another agency to do such. So if serious fraud can be seen, then that would get passed on to other agencies, but it's still, they have to deal with it. Nonetheless, I tried to send an email in 2020 to the Financial Conduct Authority with the evidence of the substandard housing where they'd broken their own rules, fabrications in their audits and failure to disclose. The email was stopped. The initial email was absolutely stopped, and that included actually going to a couple of other places I sent that out to as well, and they were all stopped. So I was not having it because there were still other things going on around me which were terrible. Again, I don't need to go into details. I'm going to try and skim over and just keep it as succinct as possible. So basically there's other things going on as well. I decided I was not happy with that, and I decided to try to get myself over to East London, to Stratford, to the actual Financial Conduct Authority's offices. I was concerned that I may got followed by the people from Loughborough Estate because they have a certain mentality, and I was concerned because they'd already done things in terms of stopping me and blocking me from getting fire safety inspections done. They ridiculed me to the fire brigade. There was, in terms of me communicating with Lambeth Council, that was kind of all on surface, just emails backwards and forwards, but nothing actually happening. And as I said, there were other things going on. Right, so I decided, like I said, to go to the Financial Conduct Authority. The first time, I suppose, I was really paranoid. I was having my mind messed with on Loughborough Estate. My behaviour was due to the way they had made me feel from things that were happening. So initially, I tried to get to the Financial Conduct Authority and shove the evidence through the back door with some security. I was scared to go to the front door. I realised that was actually stupid, and I should have just gone to the front door and not behaved the way I did, just go and do it and take the evidence in. But I didn't end it there. I carried on trying to get it reported to the Financial Conduct Authority and carried on trying to get fire safety inspections done, even contacting the Fire Safety Commissioner based in Clapham, which is Jason Jones. Anywho, so while that's going on, and as I said, I'm just going over this quickly. There's a lot of nasty things that were happening to me psychologically. And that's what was happening. It started getting pretty nasty, some of it. And as I said, I don't want to go into those details because actually I'm trying to just get over this and tell you about it. But I have to give you a bit of background. So I'd been badly hurt, and I was being seriously psychologically tortured. There were a lot of things happening, and it was awful. Staff members of Loughborough Estate Management Board, what they were doing wasn't particularly nice. And then there was people calling out ambulances on me, like after I'd spoken I had an appointment with building control, because I'd called them in and said to them that, let's get these places need to be inspected in terms of flaying concrete and all this sort of stuff, which even Jason Jones, the fire commissioner, and his staff that came with him, his 3 colleagues, saw that. What I was talking about, but the panel wasn't open for the person from building control to look at it. So I'm trying to do all of this because I know there's serious health safety concerns. Then there's fraud, and it's the way I was mistreated as well. Like serious discrimination. It was terrible. So anyway, what happened was, to all my effort, I ended up going back to the Financial Conduct Authority again, but I went the second time. I went suited, booted, and went straight through the front door and tried to organise a face-to-face appointment so that I could show evidence that I couldn't send in an email to them, which is irrefutable, proving that they have not only broken their own rules but committed crimes that should be passed on to other agencies. So the result is, anyway, I get targeted and traumatised with various things happening, and I had a massive breakdown. It was an unusual and strange breakdown. And I just lost it. I just kind of lost it. And it was actually me that called the police. I just called the police. I'd lost the plot. Yeah? I'd been so tortured, I just had a complete meltdown. It was really, really, really bizarre as well. It was strange. Anywho, I caused a bit of damage during that. I called the police. I should have called an ambulance because I wasn't well, but I called the police. I don't know. I wasn't well. Do you know what I mean? And what the police force should have done, because it was quite evident I was having a breakdown, is that they actually, at that time in 2020, should have taken me to a hospital at that time. I wouldn't have need to be sectioned but for any amount of long time, but I would have need to kind of had, supervision for a while during the breakdown because it was intense. And I've been honest about that. But that's in 2020. And as I was trying to get all these... Financial Conduct Authority. So, anywho, evidently I was taken and arrested. Instead of put into a hospital, I was arrested. And I believe I spoke about that before, so I don't think I need to go into the details of what happened at that time. But the paperwork, bringing it up to 2020. So this is the bail sheet, and it says under £5,000, the damage that I had caused, which it was under £5,000. Now, It says it on this piece of paper too. Sorry, it's back to front. I will tomorrow put photographs so you can see these things. Valued under £5,000. Okay, that's police paperwork from 2020. 2021, a whole year later, and living in a different place where I'm living now. Still things were happening. And I'd had enough, basically. And I was like, look, I simply, this is it. I am not paid to do this. Right? I have the right to be safe, and so do other people. And these are dangerous people that are involved. And what they've done to me is disgusting. You know, and I was tired because I had tried to report them because they'd already showed more than just fraud in terms of criminality. And things happen. For example, a couple of days after reporting the housing manager, I don't think it's a coincidence that someone backed her car into me trying to break my leg. I've got the CAD number, another time. Right, back to the case in hand. 2020, had enough because stuff had been continuing over and over and over, and mistreatment was just getting too much. And I was like, I'm tired. Police wouldn't deal with anything. I'd already been badly hurt. The police had even let off somebody for other things. And I was just had enough of being targeted and hurt. And I was like, you know what, all this, what they're involved in, it isn't for me to be dealing with. You know, people are paid to deal with this. You know, it's not good. And so I decided I would try and hand in the stuff to do with the housing to the authorities in person across the river from where I live. I was trying to tell them about it, but I think they were just quite dismissive and thought I was making a molehill out of a mountain. Quite contrary. I was not. Anywho, turns out the housing had done some sort of thing where I ended up, because I don't know where it came from, but apparently there was a warrant out for me. Because the agency that I approached to hand in evidence from the housing basically called the police on me. The police decided to take me away and I ended up in Charing Cross Police Station. On the 7th of September 2021. Not for one moment was it even considered to just listen to what I was saying and look at what I was trying to show them. I was dragged off and locked up overnight in Charing Cross Police Station. I was already anxious the moment they told me, because I didn't know what the heck. They were like, you're going to go court in the morning. And then they kept telling me I was going to go to Camberwell Court in the morning. Because of the trauma, I kind of forgotten that Camberwell Court had been closed down. And I'm... So, in the morning I'm up at 7 o'clock. They get me up at 7 o'clock. And they put me in a prison van. And the van starts driving and I'm like... Because I wasn't focused and I was traumatised, I'd forgotten that Camberwell Court had closed. But I had been told time and time again I was going to Camberwell Court by the police force. As we drove from Charing Cross, I just had a thought. We drove from Charing Cross to Westminster Magistrates Court by going down via Buckingham Palace. We drove around the roundabout part in front of Buckingham Palace and then drove to the right-hand side down that way, which is quite bizarre because really you could just go across London that way. Anyway, that freaked me out a little bit. And I realised this is not the way to Camberwell. And then to get to this building, and it's like it's just dark grey colour, and it drive me into this tunnel. And one gate shuts behind the van. There's a gate in front. I'm kind of stuck there for ages between these two gates. Shut, and I'm being treated like a bloody terrorist. I could not comprehend what the heck was going on. This incident was a mental breakdown. You don't charge people for having mental breakdowns. They locked me in the bottom of the Westminster Magistrates Court in a cell. Evidently, I'm going to have a massive, huge panic attack and breakdown because it doesn't make any logical sense. What the heck? I was trying to actually just hand in evidence. That's all factual. I was being hurt. It was the people that I was trying to report that caused the breakdown and this to happen in the first place. You know, and I couldn't understand what was going on and no one was listening to me. And I'm having this massive, meltdown in there too. And then they put this woman in a cell next to me. I don't know what she looked like. And she kept shouting out and shouting out and shouting out about, Allah. And it was doing my head in. And at one point I turned around and I just shouted back, why don't you just go and pray? Shut up and pray, is basically what I said. Because I'd had enough of it shouting. And I get just there for hours. And then it was late at night. It was night time anyway. Well, I don't even know because it felt like night time from the morning because I didn't see any daylight. And they taken to this random corridor with rooms, kind of plastic rooms that you get locked into a room and there's a plastic thing and someone else comes in. This woman, she's looking at me just, I'm like, I tried to report crime, I haven't done anything wrong. She's like, what makes you think Muslims are targeting you? Well, some have done. So, what makes you think Extinction Rebellion has targeted you? Well, I never said Extinction Rebellion targeted me at any point, but I do know a couple of people connected to Extinction Rebellion that have targeted me. And I was trying to say that I was a victim of crime. I'd been hurt. I'd been trying to report these things, and I wasn't being listened to. I was being shut up the whole way. I was kind of being just kind of completely degraded, and it was terrifying. And then they sent me back into the cell or for a while, and then brought me back out to see Orlando Widgew Olatunde Adeyinka, who was all going on like he was a friend. You know, even fist pumping the plastic. I get locked back up, and then I get taken up into the courtroom. There was a woman standing in kind of, I don't know, the dock area. I had to stand there for a moment, and she was taken out. I had presumed it for a case beforehand. I was taken into that, and I couldn't understand. I wasn't even allowed to talk. I wasn't even allowed to talk. And the judge, I'm trying to defend myself, I'm trying to say something, and the judge has just looked at me, scowled at me, had a go at me, slammed the gavel down. You're going to prison. I looked at the woman I had spoken to in absolute horror. What have I done to be put in prison? So, he threw me back in that cold, dark cell of stone. You know, it was like a stone kind of wall, cold feeling on the walls. And then they took me by one of those prisoner vans and drove me to Brentwood. It was terrible. The journey was terrible. I drove up to the prison. I was taken inside the prison. And I was put in this room, small room, to the left of a corridor. Like wooden and seats and kind of padded things around, a bit like kind of like where someone might have a family visit for a minute or something. It was just terrible though. It actually reminded me of something else, which was also terrible from when I was a teenager, when I was 16 years old. So it was all a bit surreal, and I was checked, like health check, COVID check, health check, all of that, and then taken to a sidewall where I was given a vape and kind of tracksuit, toothbrush, your prison stuff. And I sat in that cell. I couldn't even understand any of it. There's a television there, I turned it on. Don't even remember what was on it. Couldn't take it in. The vape they had given me was just making me cough and cough and cough. One of the prison guards, a male prison guard, had come up to the window when I was half getting changed. My benefits were illegally cut off on the 8th. Well, on the 7th. I was in that prison for 10 hours. From 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. Back to front. This is a letter from the DWP to the prison, and I was only there for 10 hours. HMP Bronzefield. Do you want to know what my prison number was? A4058ER. HMP Bronzefield, Woodthorpe Road, Ashford, TW1533Z. I was only in there for 10 hours. I managed to fall asleep though eventually after choking on those vapes. Woke up early. And I remember when my possessions were in the bag, it was a see-through bag, and obviously the person that was going to be driving the Securicor van to Westminster Magistrates Court, had all of my stuff there, and I noticed that my passport was separate. So I'm going to pause this for a moment. Okay. So, driven back to Westminster Magistrates Court the next day, and I was put back in that cell again. No consideration at all for the fact that I have conditions as well, and that I was a victim of crime. Held there for hours again. This time I had a different solicitor called Alex Sergey. And again, he also went on like he was my buddy and suggested I just roll with the being sectioned. To discredit me, the court came up. There was actually somebody that... The woman that I'd seen in the court the night before asked me about, said that really horrendous, what makes you think you're being targeted, when I absolutely was. She was there, but this time had two, psychiatrists there. And it's you can't diagnose somebody on seeing them for 10 minutes. Or based on what has been said by a housing team that I'd already tried to report, but you're not letting me speak or show any evidence of those facts. That's basically kind of what's going on there. I'd managed to get them to not lock me in a cell, but I lost the plot, and I ended up kind of walking up and down this corridor. It was where there was a group of empty cells. All the doors were open. And it's both ends of the corridors were locked. And I was by myself. There were chalkboards and chalks. And I started just going absolutely mental. I started walking up and down, citing laws and what had been happening. I got the chalkboards and I wrote every legislation and law they broke. All on the chalkboard, just every single legislation and law they broke. And I half was having a breakdown and half going on like a solicitor or barrister in a courtroom trying to defend myself. Not schizophrenic. You don't have that much paperwork. Now, they got away with locking me away under that false diagnosis, but that was immediately changed within less than 24 hours to post-traumatic stress disorder. Proof of sectioning? Well, that's part of the paperwork. I do have more. So that's a tribunal where I'm trying to cut this sectioning. So that's a tribunal. The actual sectioning paperwork, I have got it there. I'm not going to spend ages going through it. I can show that another time. They, even with the diagnosis change, and in fact I wasn't trying to hurt myself or anybody else, and I was given the correct diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder, they still kept me sectioned. It was a terrible situation. Now, unbeknownst to me, something else had happened. A couple of other things had happened, actually, unbeknownst to me. The illegal cutting off of my benefits. I was only in the prison for 10 hours, and I've showed you that. I don't need to go in that. But something else. I had also, someone had contacted the HRMC and had gone on that I didn't give birth to my own child, and they were trying to get me to pay back over £1,000. That's paperwork for that. And when I got back to the flat, I found this. The door had been kicked open by the police force. At the very same time that I was in Charing Cross Police Station, the door was kicked off by Brixton Police Force. They didn't need to kick off my door. The CAD number for said door is CAD6654/07SEP21. Brixton Police Station kicked off my front door here at Lupino Court in 2021. Paperwork. This is paperwork to do with that. I was in Charing Cross Police Station. They could have used my keys instead of broken the door. By the way, it was about 3-4 months before my front door was fixed. That's the first time. I had it broken off another time, but that's a different story, another day. Not a different story because it's all factual, but the point is a different day. Let's continue because I'm running out of video space, I've noticed. Right, okay, so section for a couple of weeks, and then the next thing I have to deal with is going to the Inner Crown Court. So the Westminster Magistrates Court sent me to the Inner Crown Court, and Darren Mark Snow. That was horrible. Now, another thing that happened during this time was the write-up of a psychiatric report by Dr. Luke Skelton. It was done in favour of those in this case, and it was done for this